Welcome back, trainers. We're here at our Day 2 Swiss Round 4. We just had an incredible match, and you had the pleasure of interviewing.
I did indeed. We had Marco Silva versus Eduardo Cunha, the current reigning world champion back at 2022 London. So a battle of actual titans. They are both international champions. Of course, one of the most prestigious level of events. It was actually a rematch, believe it or not, Shimon, where we had Marco versus Eduardo back in 2020 Oceania International Championships, where, of course, we did have Marco crowned the champion. Eduardo did get that finalist slot. So being able to actually see Marco bring that experience and understanding of how Edu does go ahead and play was phenomenal, because it really put in the work. He was able to calculate the correct positioning and win conditions that he needed to meet in order to get those fabulous predictions going. He hydro pumped 2 times into a Fire Terror of a King Gambit for game 1, and then game 2 it was the Garchomp at the precise moment. So it was something that is very, very difficult to be able to attain as a trainer, having that depth of understanding and level of experience.
That is incredible to hear. That is, of course, this Terra mechanic is something that you can just select during any time you want of your turn, which can help you a lot defensively or even offensively, as we have seen, where the same type attack bonus that you get as well when you go the same typing, but being able to play around that and being able to try, like most people are like protecting first round to see like, are they already gonna do it?
Play more safe.
Yeah, play a bit more safe. Yeah. But sometimes you have just that understanding of the game where you can just see what is going to happen before it even happens.
Well, exactly. It's sort of, you have a mind frame and some sort of map that you're navigating a couple of different routes of, okay, cool. We've got the main branch of expectations, or the tree, and then the various branches of what could happen based on X, Y, Z. And as a veteran-like player, or just generally, the best thing to do is somehow enter your mind palace and find a way to structure that as best as possible, which is very difficult because you've got, 45 seconds per turn. You've got around 1.5 minutes worth of being on the team preview. There's a lot of time constraints on you. You don't have 5 minutes to sit around and just consider all the different scenarios. You've got to do it immediately. You are on the clock.
You are on the clock. It is a bit like speed chess, where you have to think about all the possible moves that can happen. Because, of course, you have 4 Pokemon on the field, meaning a lot of things can happen. That Pokemon can protect, that Pokemon can protect, or just attack. A switch out that is possible. There's about, like, there's 20 plus options that can happen during one turn. And then you have to involve the luck as well that can happen as well, which makes it all the more difficult. And that is also something part of that mind mapping, trying to see where the option goes, like, okay, what happens if, for example, they would crit here? Okay, then I have my next option, I can do this, I can do this.
What's my backup?
Yeah, exactly. So it's plan after plan after plan, and that is amazing to see these players being able to showcase a little bit on the stream as well.
Oh, and exactly. I think from a viewer point of view, being able to see these titans battle it out at such a high quality level is very motivating, exciting, and thrilling. You're able to sort of have a bit of an in-depth insight on, oh, okay, cool, why are they going for this or why are they going for that? And then you actually see the master plan revealed at some point. You're like, oh, wow.
This is genius.
That was just ahead of what I was expecting.
It's too small. Where sometimes you look too small, too close to it to see the bigger picture. Because, of course, you want to have that end game. You want to try and force an end game where you have the advantage, where you know your win cons, what your win cons is, what your opponent's win cons is, and try to play around each other. It's a beautiful dance to do.
Yep. So as we are going to keep on going with this stream, we've got to highlight our next match, which is going to be between Giulio Tarlao versus Antonio Jesus Sánchez Servan.
I'm so happy that you were allowed to say that.
It kind of fell to me.
It kind of did fail. But yeah, these players, of course, doing very well in this tournament. We are now in round 4, meaning there's only one more round after this for Swiss. Yes. But then it is that elusive top 8 coming as well, where you are not allowed to lose anymore because of, well, rather not lose right now either, but
it would be preferable.
It would be preferable if you had to choose. No, exactly, to try and get that title of Utrecht special event champion.
It's going to be exciting. It's going to be a big one. I think rest easy to say that we are absolutely loving this weekend so far. So we know, of course, our 2 trainers we are going to be featuring very shortly, going ahead and getting everything set up and prepared for us to be able to have that sort of fly on the wall scenario of, okay, let's see how this actually goes between these 2 trainers and watch their journey on to trying to go ahead and, of course, get that title of Utrecht Special Event Champion, like you mentioned, Shimon. So going into the actual teams themselves, we have Giulio rocking up with an Iron Bundle, Tyranitar, a Mundus, Fluttermane, Annihilate, and the Volcarona, whilst over on Antonio's side, we've got the Lilligant, Fluttermane, a Great Tusk, King Gambit, surprise, surprise, Torkoal, and the Dragonite. I had to.
Yeah, you have to have the Torkoal as well. The Torkoal is amazing to have because, of course, it gives a lot of support to all of these past Paradox Pokemon with that Protosynthesis. But as you mentioned, especially that Lilligant.
Yes.
That Lilligant just boosting its speed, its Chlorophyll speed. Thanks to Chlorophyll, its speed is boosted by 2, meaning it will outspeed quite a lot of things. And, well, we probably have mentioned it yesterday, but it does outspeed, for example, the Iron Bundle with a booster energy as well.
Right, exactly. I think that's a really nice niche to it that, of course, a couple of our trainers have been able to recognize because of the amount of usage that has been observed for these type of Pokemon. Not only Iron Bundle, as well as Fluttermane having booster energy, it just hits that sweet spot where it's able to outspeed them and enable the Torkoal or even any other Pokemon by its side, as long as the sun weather conditions are on the field and the Chlorophyll ability is active.
Exactly. But now we have this interesting dynamic because a lot of Torkoal has been being played, and Torkoal, of course, setting up the sun on the opposing end. On Julio's side, we have that Tyranitar, a Pokemon that is honestly the veteran of VGC, has been quite often seen, and we actually have here the scores up till now as well, as we do see Eric Rios with the 11-1, Alex Gomez at 11-1 as well. And like a lot of players still in the running, of course, because for that famous top 8, because there's 2 more rounds, this one and the next.
Yeah, exactly. And I think at this point, if you are at 11-1, you have a very, very strong chance to be able to, of course, reach the top 8. At this point, obviously, it's just nice to make sure that you at least get 1 more win in order to propel yourself with much more certainty into it. There are a couple of other names as well that we have featured both on stream, but we have heard about more in the background too. We've got Maurice Utek, which is, of course, I believe the 2022 Bremen regional champion, so making their way over to the Netherlands of Utrecht to try to go ahead and get another title under their belt. We do have Oliver Eskelin that we have already featured, Aurélien Soula, which has done incredibly well with their consistency, one of the most highly anticipated players that I have kept my personal eye on because they just keep on delivering, and it's so exciting to actually see the sort of community sharing that Aurélien, for example, may have with the French community too, which is something we haven't highlighted as much. We have, of course, seen Thomas earlier on this morning that was able to go up against Oliver, so it's really great to actually see the intermixing sort of representation of all of the different regions.
Exactly, and another player that we have been able to feature was Niels Dunlop, that we has been on stream as well. I'm very happy to see that they are doing also very well here. Just a lot of these names are the ones that have been featured before as well, that we have seen, like being the top scorers here. And here we have even more of the results as well. We see Bas there as well. Bit less, but you know, it's still Bas doing amazingly. This is day 2, of course. This is still a high level of play that is going on, and when your day is filled with just high-level play, it sometimes makes it a bit hard to keep winning.
Just a tiny bit. Not too much, you know.
Somehow the level increased there.
It's not like you've reached the final hurdle of the 40, 50-plus best players at the whole tournament out of a 500-person tournament.
Honestly, it's incredibly hard. And of course, all of these players are so well versed into this metagame as well.
Yeah, we've got quite a few other regions that are represented here, namely being, of course, the Netherlands. We've got Rob Akershek being able to reach the 9 and 3 section. Generally speaking, when we've got X3 in day 2 Swiss, there is a chance they will be able to make top 8 as long as they're able to just win out at this current stage. There's still 2 final rounds that do remain, so they need to really dig deep and find a way to propel themselves into the top 8. We've got a couple of German representatives as well. I think we already mentioned Maurice earlier on. We've got Michael Kalch, which has done very incredibly well from their side of the field. I think they went up against Juan Manuel Odriozola yesterday, where it was a very, very close set. Juan was just able to just get that additional advantage. I think it was maybe a damage roll that could have gone either way. That was the final decider of the set, which is just goes to show you how close the lines are between victory and defeat and the end of result, propelling you into the day 2 Swiss.
Exactly, and with these players being with their backs against the wall, because of course everyone wants that top 8. If we could include all the players into top 8, it would be kind of hard because that's not 8 players, but these players are all worthy of that top 8 as well, because they have put in so much work, and the amount of teams that we have seen so many spectacular ways of training your Pokemon to make that team click as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are multiple ways to train your dragons, as we've seen quite a few Dragonites making their appearance. I think we've actually seen about mixed usage when it comes to their abilities. You know, we've got that in the focus, but also the serpent sort of trend of the multi-scale ability.
Exactly.
So it allows for more cushion area for those type of specific Dragonites which want to try to fulfill a role of either speed control, having the Tailwind accessible to themselves, or more of a tankier sort of consistent Pokemon you know you can rely on to have a bit more bulk. Naturally speaking, to just deal the damage that it needs to. If you need the Flying Terror Blast, it's there. It's going to deal damage, even if it's not robustly trained to be very proud when it comes to its attack offensive output.
Exactly, that is something that we have seen even when like a Dragonite, for example, multi-scale gets intimidated or gets his attack just lowered on its own. That Terra Blast doing so much damage as well, and we have seen Choice Bandit, we have seen Lumbears, we have seen Assault Vest. There's so many different ways to train your Pokemon and
to train your dragon.
To train your dragon.
Gotta say it again.
How to you need to know how to train your dragon too. No, it's very important the way, because the important thing about making one Pokemon work, if there's one Pokemon that you really want to make work, you can try and make that puzzle fit perfectly within the rest of the team as well.
Well, exactly, because there's a lot of different levels to take into consideration with team building going into the meta. Do you have enough to cover for all of the well-known cores that you will likely be seeing in going into any sort of tournament? Do you have the flow charts that you have been able to thoroughly navigate and get some really good practice sessions going? I think Jamie's done quite well in introducing me to a certain sort of a style setup of preparation going into the tournaments. Just looking, let's say, for example, you go and you play on the ladder, or you focus down on, let's say, best of 3 practice with friends. Try to get as much statistical data as you can in better picturing and visualizing what works and what doesn't. What, for example, are you more weak to when it comes to certain cores that appear being used from opposing trainers, and what don't, and what doesn't need changing? So we're going to have to go ahead and actually see what sort of fundamentals these 2 trainers have been able to impart onto their teams going into today.
Yes, exactly. As you mentioned, it's the teams, it's the players. There's so many things involved because, of course, you have to be able. You're not playing alone, of course.
Yep.
You have your opponent to play with and trying to see what they are going for, what are they prone for to know to do, or even like in these games themselves. If you haven't even played your game, a game against them, or don't know your opponent, you have that first game to learn as much information as possible. Try and get as much and not to give away too much information from yourself if possible as well.
Well, exactly. I think that's the sort of nuances when it comes to training your Pokemon in a way that may not be as obvious when you've got a very well-experienced trainer you're facing up against. So even though there is the open team sheet capability of being able to review items, Terra type, abilities, moves, you try to hide whatever information you can. So finding a way to actually vary between the training styles is very, very crucial in getting the jump onto your opponent.
Yes, and on screen we can see the achievements of Antonio. We do see the Bilbao Special Event runner-up, as we do have the Players Cup 4 top 8. We have the Players Cup 3, EU Qualifier top 6, Players Cup 1 top 12. That is a lot of Players Cup there. And Giulio as well with the OCIC top 16 and many other titles as well, of course.
Yes, exactly. Over on Giulio's side, we do know that he did achieve the top 16 in this most recent Oceania International Championships. A very solid player throughout the previous season too, so really looking forward and very excited to actually see what he's going to bring today.
Yeah, as we see the Great Tusk, Kingambit, Turco, Lilligant, Fluttermane and Dragonite. Now a lot of these teams will enjoy that sun with that drop from the Turco, because the Fluttermane with the photosynthesis, the Great Tusk with the photosynthesis, and the Lilligant with the chlorophyll as well.
Exactly. So a team that we're most definitely familiar with to a certain extent. It does look like it is, of course, Abdullah Mohayuddin's team, which Antonio has done incredibly well in bringing. But going over to Giulio's side, we've got the Annihilate, Mundus, Volcarona, Iron Bundle, Fluttermane, and the Tyranitar. A couple of things to call out. Of course, the Annihilate is there. It does not have the usual sort of partner that it's used to, being that mouse hold. It does, however, have a Mundus for any sort of redirection options, but we are already in game 1, turn 1, where we do have the leads. Annihilate and the Iron Bundle over on Giulio's side, and over on Antonio's we got the Kingambit and the Fluttermane.
Yeah, interesting to see the Kingambit work without the mouse hold, but it is interesting in this situation because that Annihilate, of course, being a fighting type, being able to threaten this Kingambit quite a bit, and on the other hand, we have the Fluttermane being able to threaten the Kingambit, and this is where speed tiers are very important because, firstly, the Iron Bundle is prone to be one of the fastest Pokemon onto the field because it had that booster energy, boosting its speed as well. And then next up, we have the Fluttermane being able to attack next to. This is the moment where you have to decide, is my Terra type being used or not defensively? And as we do see it being used, it is that Annihilate going for that Terra Fire, making sure that no Fairy moves or Ghost moves will be hit super effectively onto it.
It makes sense because you are being directly threatened by the Fluttermane. You know, of course, it is the Choice Specs variant. So, needless to say, it will most definitely pack a bit of a punch, as Kingambit will go ahead and Terrastal on its side of the field. Now, actually showing us the Fire Terra type choice. Iron Bundle going for the Protect here, does not want to have any of this for turn 1, anticipating the Dazzling Gleam coming out here very, very nicely. The Dazzling Gleam doesn't deal any sort of damage onto the Annihilate due to the defensive Terrastal there, as we see the Bulk Up is starting to set itself up. +1 in attack and defense as the Kowtow Cleave picks up a critical hit, nearly gets the KO, but the important thing there is the fact that it really shouldn't have dealt that much damage.
Yeah, exactly, because that Annihilate did go for a Bulk Up. Critical hits, of course, ignoring any boost to its defense stat. Now having a lot of damage. Luckily, that Annihilate now being able to heal a bit more thanks to that Citrus Berry, of course. Now the Fluttermane is threatening it yet again with a neutral attack from Shadow Ball. Could do, but potentially do a lot of damage as well. On the other hand, if Annihilate is able to survive, it might be able to get a bit of that HP back with a Dream Punch as well.
It really could, because it does still have the +1 in its attack, of course, as we are going to be seeing the Iron Bundle, apologies, wanting to switch itself out, maybe, of course, being aware of the high threat of the Dazzling Gleam. We know the Flutter Mane is the fastest thing on the field. A Moonguest will be the defensive switch in here. Very nice, as it, of course, does resist the Fairy typing there. Going to be taking very minimal damage, however. We do have Terra Blast on this Kingambit. That could have been an option if there was a read from Antonio's side. However, no. We saw the very safe, direct play of wanting to focus down on the Annihilate. Antonio doing a really good job in identifying that the Annihilate is a very key role for Giulio. Having the advantage of that critical hit land during turn 1 really proved to be very decisive, and Antonio wants to capitalize off of it.
Exactly. Now, I forgot to mention that the Flutter Mane is actually choice spec, so it is locked inside that Dazzling Gleam right now. So the Annihilate not taking that much damage because it is resisting that, as well as the Amoonguss. So it's mainly this Kingambit doing all the damage right now, as his Amoonguss is going for the Rage Fire, trying to redirect any possibilities coming out from this Kingambit as well. As we see the Dazzling Gleam from this Flutter Mane going out into that Annihilate. Annihilate not taking this pretty well, as we see the Rage Fist into the Flutter Mane and KOing that as well.
Picking up a very crucial KO there. Of course, we had a couple of the Rage Fist ticks boost up due to Annihilate taking those damage, maybe likely skyrocketing it up to 150 base power, as we see the Terra Blast, Fire Terra Blast, coming out in fiery fashion, picking up the KO onto the Amoonguss. It is out of game 1, and we have a 3 versus 3 scenario, even though this Annihilate isn't a scenario where it's got +1 in its attack, it's got +1 in its defense. It does have the slow sort of a potential of being a juggernaut of a Pokemon that you need to really focus down on, but it has taken a lot of damage.
Exactly. Now, because it has taken a lot of damage and the Amoonguss is gone, so the redirection is gone as well, meaning you will have to play very carefully with this, because of course now the Kingambit has the option to go for a Sucker Punch, for example, or even the Dragonite that is now in to go for an X3 speed. But on the other hand, we have the Iron Bundle. This one is running that Hydro Pump. Yep. It is risking it for the biscuit, with a possible doing a lot of damage to this Kingambit or any type of ice move onto this Dragonite, which will be super duper effective as well.
It really will be. I love that coin terminology there. Super duper effective.
Yeah, if it's 4 times, it's super duper.
Exactly. Quad equals duper. So we are going to be seeing a failure of Protect there. Hydro Pump does connect. Does, of course, deal a substantial amount of damage onto the Kingambit, which, due to its failed double protect, will not get another move set off. Annihilate, going for the second bulk up, will now have +2 in its attack as well as +2 in its defense. But Dragonite has now, all of a sudden, quite literally changed the board state by giving that additional speed thanks to the Tailwind.
Exactly. Now that the Tailwind is up, we have a very different game, because that Kingambit suddenly a bit faster and double as fast as is that Dragonite. Dragonite still enjoying its multi-scale as well, meaning that every attack that it will take right now on its when it's full HP will do quite a bit less to make sure that it can survive any potential moves.
As the Iron Bundle as well as the Annihilate go for the Protect. Giulio just wants to start stalling out those turns of Tailwind, as Dragonite is just wanting to kind of focus down on this Iron Bundle. Might be a Sucker Punch combination here, which we do not see, just a very safe, steady Kowtow Cleave. So what we've generally seen at this current moment is the Iron Bundle over on Giulio's side does have booster energy, which means it will be outspeeding, hence why the Dragonite is trying to get the extreme speed. Hydro Pump does connect, it does pick up the KO onto the Kingambit, not even attempting to go for any Sucker Punch there, which it did have the option to do so.
Exactly, and now this Annihilate is free to do what it wants. Annihilate has been hit quite a few times and going for yet another bulk up, just not wanting to get hit by any type of Sucker Punch. And now it is now at +3 defensive, I believe, and +3 attack, which is quite powerful to see. And now the Great Tusk is in, and now Great Tusk is kind of enjoying this side because the Tailwind is up. That Annihilate is a Fire type, and next to it is a Dragonite, meaning Earthquakes are inbound.
Well, yes, there is the Tailwind, which of course is still in effect. However, the Iron Bundle having the booster energy will mean it is still going to be the fastest thing on the field. So, how do you position this situation where you can go ahead and win this game out if you're Giulio with the Annihilate by protecting the Iron Bundle? You do not want to take that oncoming extreme speed, which will completely fail from Antonio's side. Earthquake does come out. Is this enough to pick up the KO on this weakened Annihilate, even though it's at +3, and it is the Fire Terror type? Let's find out that it is. So Annihilate, unfortunately, is going to go out of this game one, leaving Giulio with a fresh Pokemon that he can bring in the back. But is it enough?
Yeah, and as we see, the Tailwind has finally gone out, meaning this Dragonite going back not to double speed. As we see the Tyranitar come out, Tyranitar, very interesting pick here to see, because Tyranitar, of course, threatening that Dragonite with any type of rock move, while this Iron Bundle can threaten this Great Tusk as well with any sort of ice or even the Hydro Pump, possibly, of course, Freeze Dry potentially being the best move there is there. Going for the extreme speed into the Iron Bundle, while the Great Tusk going for that Earthquake, trying to deal as much damage as possible as well, as we do see a lot of damage onto that Iron Bundle and going down. Tyranitar still being able to hold on and going for that Rock Slide, trying to do as much damage as it can.
It can indeed do a bit of damage. It does connect and get a critical hit onto the Great Tusk. However, it is not going to do enough. And at this point, unfortunately, the Tyranitar is left on its lonesome self in any sort of effort that it could try to bring this back. Very unfortunate. I think very quick note to make there. I'm not sure if I might have been seeing things, Shimon, but I would have expected the Iron Bundle to be outspeeding even with Tailwind set up on Dragonite's side, unless there's any specific types of speed tiering this Dragonite could land, which is why it's actually been opted to be ran with the Tailwind.
Yeah, that is very interesting to see. So Dragonite just might have that enough of speed investment to be sure to outspeed any potential Iron Bundle coming out. And what we have seen from that game quite a bit, actually. For example, that Annihilate, of course, it did get crit there, but still posing such a big threat at such a low HP. Not even Drain Punching, like getting its HP back, but just being able to threaten a lot of things just with that Rage Fist, because it did get hit a few times for those powerful, powerful moves as well.
It really did, and I think Giulio was trying to find an optimal way to better position itself in order to rely on it as a mid to late game sweeper. We did unfortunately see for Giulio, Antonio set up the Tailwind. He noticed it, he recognized it, he thought, okay, cool, this could be really important for my game plan if, for example, I'm able to find a validated way to outspeed that booster energy Iron Bundle over on Giulio's side, because we know that Giulio's Iron Bundle has Freeze Dry, Hydro Pump, Icy Wind. It can go ahead and slow things down. Icy Wind, if it connected on both the Dragonite as well as the Great Tusk, it would further allow the Annihilate, perhaps with a bit more room, because the main important thing there is the fact that we knew that Great Tusk was able to pick up the KO, but it would still be under the conditions of Tailwind. You just needed to outlast it in order to allow the Annihilate to pick up the KOs. So unfortunately, the 3 bulk ups we did see on it didn't really pay off as well as Giulio planned.
Exactly. The bulk ups really was a last-minute play, so to say, because of course Annihilate being pretty low, not wanting to get Sucker Punch as well. The King Gambit not ever going for that Sucker Punch as well.
Right.
Playing a bit further ahead there. But what we actually saw as well is the Torkoal didn't come at all.
No Torkoal. It's definitely there on the team list. Let me double check. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But it didn't actually come onto game 1. It'll be interesting to actually see if it does arrive on the field at some point or is in the back for game 2, as we do have the leads. Couple of switch-ups. Tyranitar is on the field, accompanied by the Amoonguss over on Giulio's side, and we've got the Dragonite plus Flutter Mane on Antonio.
Yeah, this is a very interesting lead, because of course the Tyranitar does threaten the Dragonite quite a bit, and Dragonite not really being able to hit this super effectively, still being able to hit this. quite hard with a possible Terra Blast or like even Extreme Speed will still do a bit of damage, but thanks to this Sandstorm that Tyranitar set up as well, it will now get a special defense raise. Thanks to that special defense raise, being able to make sure that Fluttermane will not damage it as much either, while the Tyranitar just threatening everything with just a Rock Slide. And yeah, Fluttermane not being that defensive, as we do see the Terra from this Dragonite coming out.
Flying Terra coming out of the Dragonite right now. A bit of an adaptation. It makes sense. You want to try to rely on it as much as possible without perhaps taking any sort of additional damage to it. I think it's just going for the KO. It's trying to focus down on the Amoonguss. It doesn't really care about the Tyranitar, as at least you do have the Fluttermane that could deal some consistent amount of damage onto it with a double up of the Dazzling Gleam, affecting both of those targets. So, double protect from Giulio's side. Just wanting to scout out a bit of what Antonio plans to do. We have seen, of course, the Terra Blast did try to focus down onto the Amoonguss. So Giulio, even though it doesn't look like he was able to gain as much from it, he did. We saw Antonio actually used up their Terra right now onto the Dragonite slot. So Giulio will be able to still have Terra available to themselves in the back whenever they want to go ahead and get that surprise factor onto the field, whilst better planning the next couple of turns from their side.
Exactly, and now because of that protect as well, with the Sandstorm, making sure that the multi-scale on the Dragonite was broken, and we have the interesting thing that the, we do actually see the Dazzling Gleam coming out, doing quite a bit to this Tyranitar, and the Terra Blast from the Dragonite as well, coming out to deal a lot of damage to this Amoonguss, of course. Amoonguss just going down because, of course, that is a flying type move that you do not want to be in front of when you're a little shroom. As we do see the Dragon Dance from Tyranitar coming out, just trying to boost itself to be a bit faster, meaning what else can come in here really to deal, to come in on this damage that the Tyranitar can provide now as well, because multi-scale is broken. The Fluttermane now as well, having a bit of damage as well, not that defensive, so this Tyranitar being threatened, and now we have the Iron Bundle with the boosted energy, having the possibility to do Icy Wind even, to making the speed tiers even lower, trying to make this Tyranitar outspeed everything here on the field, except of course the Iron Bundle.
Very smart adaptation from Giulio going into the strategy of Game 2. You know that at least, judging with what the Pokemon Antonio brought in Game 1, there was no Torkoal. You will be able to run Supreme with whether unless Torkoal is going to be coming in here, which it is not. It is the King Gambit. So allowing a situation where we know that Dragon Dance Tyranitar cannot outspeed any sort of Fluttermanes based on the speed tiering of how these Pokemon can be trained, but in combination with Icy Wind, potentially Ice Terra type boosted Icy Wind, this could prove to be very detrimental as it comes out, but we have a miss on the Fluttermane. That is quite big, or most definitely can be. King Gambit, that is not the turn that Giulio's looking for. Defiant is proc. The attack is now at +2, and the Dazzling Gleam picks up the KO onto the Tyranitar. Iron Bundle in its cute little silhouette, just waiting there for its partner to dispatch loads of damage, and has been left on its own.
Yeah, that suddenly turned around literally there, because of course if the Ice Wind missed, for example, the King Gambit, that would have been a way better position, of course, but missing the Fluttermane was the one target you really did want to hit, so that Tyranitar could provide at least a bit of damage. And yes, unfortunately, seeing that the situation has gone dire, conceding there for Antonio, and congratulations to Antonio, trying to really bring a different kind of team here with the not even bringing the Torkoal, really.
No, I mean, didn't bring the Torkoal because Antonio knew the Tyranitar maybe coming out, it might not be 100% worth going on Antonio's game plan, of course, but Giulio, I feel really bad for Giulio, because Giulio did an incredible job in setting up the board state to a preferable way where he's going to be able to sort of return all of that pressure, the offensive pressure that Antonio was able to push onto him during Game 1, and he did it in a masterclass sort of way. Unfortunately, though, Icy Wind is Icy Wind. It gives you the chills.
It can still miss. That's the unfortunate part. It might not feel like it, but it has that 5% chance to miss, which can happen. And there were other things that you could have considered, because of course, if we're looking at the team sheets, for example, when that Dragonite went for that Terra Blast, the Amoongus actually had a very interesting Terra type, being that electric typing, being able to resist that possibly, and that possibility of, am I going to click it? Am I not going to click it? Is it the Dragonite? Is the Dragonite going to be prepared for me going to click it as he saw me now protect? Now knowing that he's wanting to do Terra Blast, just, it shows the amount of level of thoughts, like, no, I'm not predicting, like, I'm playing this. Okay, you're thinking that, but I'm thinking one step further to just make sure that that Amoongus is gone.
Different layers of the mind game onion.
Yeah, exactly.
If you will.
You just got to peel it.
You just got to keep on peeling and find the right layer and say, okay, that's the one. But
this is what I want. This play, yeah. That.
It's that one, I think. And you're proven wrong. But no, I think the fact that Giulio did set himself terrifically with the Dragon Dance of Tyranitar, and then, of course, towards the early mid-game, you bring the Iron Bundle in, you know you got that offensive speed control pressure, you go for the additional Terra boost there with Ice-typing Terra, just so you can deal a bit more damage whilst providing support with the speed control. Sure, there's the greedy choice of maybe the Tyranitar went for a second Dragon Dance, but I highly doubt that. The Dragon Dance being set up once in combination with the Icy Wind will be more than enough to outspeed a non-booster energy Flutter Mane and likely pick up the KO because you got the additional damage output thanks to the Dragon Dance. So quite detrimental. Of course, you saw Giulio go ahead and concede that match, but unfortunately, that is how this game goes sometimes. You know, you're not going to have luck always on your side, even though you feel that at this point, I could be in an amazing spot, and you've done the calculations, you've done the predictions, you know what the board state should be in order to provide you that win condition and force a Game 3.
Exactly. It is the game we play. What does happen, the luck can go in your way, can go against you from time to time. It is that, and it was so smart as well to keep the King Gambit in the back as well for a potential,
it was a switch.
yeah,
a switch, right?
It was a switch to the King Gambit, like keeping that in back, just making sure, like, okay, you might Icy Wind, you might even kill my Flutter Mane, but you will boost my King Gambit. And King Gambit at +2 being such a huge threat still, as that Tyranitar only had the Crunch and Rock Slide possibilities there, as the King Gambit with its typing just being able to really power through that as well.
It was a very smart switch from Antonio. So even if, let's say, for example, the Icy Wind did connect, we did have the Flutter Mane go down, the King Gambit would still be at +2. So that was an incredible switch from Antonio. You saw how well he navigated that Game 1. And for example, we do have the scenario where, sure, he understands what needs to be done. He didn't even bring the Torkoal and the King Gambit. However, being able to rely on that Tailwind from the Dragonite was a crucial thing in that scenario. You're able to provide a bit more of support in order to allow your other Pokemon, your other damage sweepers, to go ahead and get enabled and dispatch of all of the damage that you need to.
Yeah, it is interesting to see because we have seen a lot, we have seen Tyranitar a lot in the metagame where Tyranitar was being run with Assault Fest a lot of the times because, as we just saw, that Dazzling Gleam with choice specs, even on a Tyranitar that has its special defense raised with thanks to that Sandstorm as well, still doing a lot of damage there, like even over half of the damage still, just showcasing, okay, like this Tyranitar can at least take one with the Dragon Dance and then just being put in the right position. It's just unfortunate. It's just really unfortunate. The first game then with an highly critical hit, and now this is, that.
It's just how things go, right? And I think Antonio has done an incredible job in going ahead and likely improving the chances for him to reach the top 8, which at this point is highly coveted and is very tough to be able to find your way through all of these stellar players that just keep on coming at every single event. They are present, they are in for the title, for the run, they're hungry for it, and you need to try to not only learn from them, you could use that power against them, that knowledge, in order to just set yourself up and just do the best that you can to get that goal.
Exactly, and we can hear itself from the winner from that round as well. We will shortly be back, but for now, we will go to that interview.
Thank you so much, Simon. I am here with your winner of that round, Antonio Sánchez. Thank you very much for being here, Antonio. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How do you feel about that set?
Okay, so going into that set, I knew the matchup was a bit hard because he has Tyranitar, and I can't really bring Lily Cole into that. So I knew I had to use my other 4 months and just go from there. And yeah, but I was feeling confident going into that. So
Yeah, fantastic. How much had you practiced against Sand before?
well, it's a big team. Like
Yeah.
Tyranitar itself is so many different things, but it's a current thing, no? So yeah, I knew my things. I knew that Lily Cole cannot be brought against Tyranitar most of the time, so I have to use my other mons. As you saw on stream, like for example, I just have to bring King Gambit and through their main and go from there.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe I can highlight a play. Well, like for example, I know that Iron Bundle has Icy Winds, so I can just swap in King Gambit as we saw and get the boost from Defiant and go from there. I have to use my other mons at their fullest, so to say.
Yeah, really interesting seeing the Defiant coming into play as a really nice ability on your King Gambit. And when you're not playing Sand, how often do you bring the Lily Cole?
Well, actually, I brought everything, bring it at home. Like, it's a really good mode. Like, not many people are prepared for it, even after what happened last week. It won in Vancouver Regionals, and it's a really good mode. It gives me tons of options, so even if I don't get the turns right, I can still go for example, a Sleep Powder and bring the odds in my favor. And it's a really oppressive mode, so to say.
Yeah. It's an absolutely very powerful core to have on your team. In that game 1, you had a critical hit onto the Annihilate on Giulio's side. How crucial do you feel that was for your game?
I think at the first, I think both of us thought that it was going to be huge, but after seeing how the line went, how the game went, I think it was just a matter of getting cheap damage on Annihilate because it went for Terrafire, so it was going to be weak to ground, which had my great task had. So it was just a matter of getting in Earthquake range and just KOing it. But it was, I think it was bad for him. He shook his head and everything, so it must have affected him. But yeah, it was kind of big.
Yeah.
But I think I could have played from there without the grid.
Yeah, that's understandable. And coming into this tournament, how confident were you? How much prep had you done in advance?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question because I settled on this thing like 15 days ago. Like, I talked to Nick Navarre, Nails, and he told me this thing is good, and I was like, yeah, I've been testing Lily Cole, and this is amazing. And it just happened to win last week in Vancouver, and it was even more reassurance that this thing is amazing. And I never look back. I knew I was bringing this, and here we go. I practiced a ton, and it's paying off. So I'm very happy.
Yeah, there you go. Shows how important your friends are in this community, helping you out with teams like that and advice from your friends. So you're now 11-2, I believe, your record. That's a fantastic record, and congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Is there anything in the rounds coming up that you hope you don't go up against?
To be fair, I'm feeling very confident. I think I can beat anything. And just have to play one more round of Swiss, and I'm going to do my best there and see how it goes. I don't fear anything, so...
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a really good attitude to have. Just see how it goes and play your best. That's all you can do. Okay, and finally, any shout-outs you want to give?
Oh, for sure, yeah. So I hope I don't forget anything. So first of all, shout-outs to Sufian, Victor, Miguel. They are my friends. They are always there for me. Also, shout-outs to Tab Nation. They always help me. They're always there. And yeah, shout-outs to my family too. And yeah, if I forget anyone, thanks to everyone who helped me. So
there you go. Goes to show how many people are involved in the success of brilliant trainers like Antonio Sánchez. Thank you so much, Antonio. Congratulations. We look forward to seeing how you continue to do in this tournament. And we will cut to a quick break now, but don't go anywhere because our final round of Swiss is coming up very shortly.